I get it, you've been scrolling through endless listings, trying to figure out if a pre-built rig is worth the hype or just another pricey box that will sit half filled with dust. You're probably thinking, do I really need a machine that looks like a sci-fi cockpit, or can I just stick with my old laptop and a cheap upgrade? That hesitation is real, especially when you're about to drop a few $100 on something that promises next-gen performance but could end up being a glorified paperweight. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, so you can compare prices and specs without hunting around. The ASUS ROG G700 is the kind of desktop that tries to solve those doubts right out of the gate. It's built around the new Intel Core Ultra 7265KF and an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5070, paired with 32GB of DDR5 RAM and a 1TB PCIe 4.0 NVMe SSD. On paper that looks like a monster, but the real question is how it behaves once you plug it into your monitor, turn it on, and start gaming for a few hours. First off, the design is impossible to ignore. The dual glass side panels give you a clear view of the internals, and the ROG branding is all over the chassis in those signature neon accents. For many gamers, that visual appeal is part of the purchase decision. It makes the rig feel like a centerpiece rather than just a box. But it also means you'll need a decent desk space. The G700 is a full tower, so it won't squeeze onto a cramped bedroom desk without some careful planning. If your gaming area is already crowded, you might find the size more of a hassle than a perk. What really matters day to day is how the machine handles heat, because a powerful CPU and GPU can easily turn a quiet room into a sauna. ASUS equipped the G700 with a 240mm liquid cooler and a quad-fan front intake system. In my testing, the fan stayed relatively quiet at idle, humming at a level you could comfortably have a conversation over. Under load, say you're running Cyberpunk 2077 at 144 Hz with ray tracing turned on, the liquid cooler kept the CPU temps in the low 70s C, while the GPU hovered around the mid 60s. The fan noise did climb, but it never crossed the threshold of being a distraction. It felt more like a subtle whir rather than a roar. If you're sensitive to noise or plan to game late at night, this cooling setup is a solid win. Connectivity is another practical angle that often gets glossed over in spec sheets. The G700 comes with a 2.5 gigabits per second Ethernet port, Wi-Fi 6, and a handful of USB-C and USB-A ports scattered across the front and back. For a typical multiplayer gamer, the 2.5 gigabits per second Ethernet means you can push a stable, low-latency connection even on the busiest home network. The Wi-Fi 6 module is a good fallback if you can't run a cable, and the USB-C ports are handy for connecting newer peripherals like the latest VR headset or an external SSD without needing dongles. In real use, I never experienced a drop in frame rates due to network hiccups, and charging my phone via the front USB-C was a pleasant convenience. Now, let's talk about the ready for upgrades claim. ASUS designed the chassis with toolless access, so swapping out the SSD, adding another storage drive, or even upgrading the GPU doesn't require a screwdriver set. I opened the case after a couple of weeks, slid the side panels off, and the interior was laid out cleanly. Cables were managed with zip ties, and there were clear slots for extra drives. This matters because a pre-built is only as future-proof as the ease with which you can extend it. If you plan to keep the machine for at least 3 to 5 years and want to upgrade the GPU when the next generation drops, this toolless design will save you time and frustration. On the flip side, the motherboard is a proprietary ROG layout, which limits you to ASUS-approved components if you ever want to push the envelope. So, while you can upgrade, you're still somewhat locked into the brand's ecosystem. Performance-wise, the combination of the Ultra 7 processor and RTX 5070 delivers a smooth experience in most modern titles. In a 1080p Warzone session, I was consistently hitting 140,150 frames per second on high settings, and even when I pushed the resolution to 1440p with ultra textures, the frame rate hovered around a stable 100 frames per second. The 32GB of DDR5 RAM eliminates any bottlenecks when you have multiple applications open, streaming, Discord, and the game itself all ran without noticeable hitches. The 1TB NVMe SSD loaded worlds in seconds. A fresh Elden Ring install launched in under a minute, and level transitions were practically instant. If you're a content creator who also does video editing, the fast storage and ample RAM mean render times are noticeably quicker compared to a mid-range build. However, there are trade-offs. The price point for the G700 is higher than many DIY builds that can match or beat its raw specs if you're comfortable assembling the parts yourself. For someone who values the convenience of a ready-to-play machine, that price may